Good afternoon and welcome to this press conference on 2025 EU budget. Parliament has voted on amendment to the Council position, and today we have a rapporteur for the general budget and Parliament's Vice President, Mr. Victor Negrescu. He will present the main takeaway from the vote and the Parliament position, and then we'll have some time for questions. Also, today we have interpretation into English, French, German, and Romanian, so you're welcome to use those languages if you want to ask questions. So without further ado, I give the floor to Mr. Rapporteur, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for joining today's press conference. Indeed, the European Parliament just voted the Parliament's reading on the EU budget 2025, and I think you have probably noticed the strong support for our clear request when it comes to the EU budget for next year. Generally speaking, for the compromises that were proposed by us, more than half, of course, of the members supported us, and this underlined how we managed to conduct the negotiations on the figures, on the numbers, and the budgetary allocations. And this shows that we are entering this negotiation with the Council with a strong position defended by the Parliament across the aisle. If we look, of course, at the numbers, what we clearly underline in the perspective of the European Parliament is that we believe that the EU budget for 2025 should focus on further investment. We reject the proposal made by the Council, which, in our opinion, corresponds to an austerity budget. They are seeking to cut the EU budget, and in the same time, they are not explaining the reasons behind their proposal, knowing that we just recently reached an agreement on the MFF revision. So the European Parliament wants to defend the agreement reached once we revised the multi-annual financial framework, while at the same time providing a clear solution for the RRF interest rate payment. And we do that in a balanced way that, of course, takes into consideration the current challenges, using both the commitments, but also in the same time the specific EUR line that was created in order to finance this mechanism. Nevertheless, as we have also underlined in the debate that took place yesterday, we noticed the differences between the forecast made by the Commission and the actual numbers that we are to pay in terms of interest rates. Nevertheless, we believe the cascade mechanism, as it was defined in the MFF revision, allows us to finance adequately the RRF. So we found solutions to finance the recovery plans, and this is really important for us. We believe there is a clear benchmark that was discussed in the MFF revision, and we are ready to defend that. You saw probably the position of the Parliament, believing that, of course, within the commitments and in the EUR line, we have adequate resources for those specific needs. So now going back to the numbers, the EU budget for 2025 is around 200 billion euros, and the European Parliament, first of all, starts by asking the Council to restore the numbers back to the Commission proposal, and it's already an important step forward because this will allow us to have the necessary resources for the programs that the Parliament has defended also in previous years. In the same time, we believe reinforcements are needed, and there are some topics of particular interest for the Parliament. I will underline, for instance, the need to reinforce Erasmus+, restore the numbers, but also reinforce by 70 million euros, because we believe Erasmus should be accessible for everyone, also for those that have faced the impact of course, economic challenges. We also believe that we need to reinforce the EU for Health by 50 million euros by investing more, of course, in what we already defined together, the cancer plan, but also in preventing cardiovascular diseases, children's diseases or improving mental health. In this regard, we heard that the Council is preparing a declaration on mental health. So therefore, I think it is important also for the Council to respect its declarations and its work by allowing us to allocate adequate resources for those priorities that we seem to have together, but of course we have to reflect those priorities also in actual numbers. We are also strong supporters of doing more when it comes to agriculture, when it comes to our support giving to the ones affected by natural disasters, especially now in the context of the flood in Central and Eastern Europe. We try to reinforce those specific programs. We are, of course, traditionally defending the programs related to the digital sector or environmental issues. But in the same time, of course, we believe that we have to invest in the infrastructure, and therefore there is a strong support, for instance, for the Connecting Europe facility mechanism. We are also calling for additional sums for the support for SMEs, for social dialogue, but also for a better coordination between social security systems, allowing a better mobility of EU citizens. We are also quite strong when it comes to border protection and border management, and therefore we increase the allocation for the Asylum, Migration and Integration Fund by 25 million, the Border Management and Visa Instrument by 35 million, the Internal Security Fund by 5 million, and we also, of course, on the defense side, we intervene and we support an increase to the budget designed for military mobility. When it comes to border protection, we clearly indicate the need to enlarge the Schengen area by supporting the full integration of Romania and Bulgaria in the Schengen area. We also reinforce the programs that the EU is using to act abroad in the southern and eastern neighborhood, and also in particular the humanitarian aid action. As you have noticed, on those specific points, we tend to have similar views with the Council. So the discussions have already started. We are only at the beginning. On the 5th of November, we are supposed to have new conciliations and to hopefully move forward in a timely manner, but in the same time finding the best compromises that will allow us to have adequate financial means for the investment that we see fit for the future of Europe, while in the same time conserving what was already achieved in the MFF revision. So basically we are proposing an ambitious perspective when it comes to the budget, but in the same time prudent. I know it's two different words, two different concepts, but in this case they match, because in the Parliament's perspective we do not affect the single margin instrument or the flexibility instrument as much as it used to be the case from the Parliament side. So the amendments go up to 1.2 billion euros in commitments compared to the draft budget. So it's a number that is comparable to previous years. So therefore, of course, we managed to come up with a proposal that will reinforce the budget on what we consider to be our key priorities, as a reflection of also of what people expressed during the recent elections, but also what we saw in the recent Eurobarometer that points out the directions to some of the priorities that were defined by us. Of course, I'm ready to provide you additional numbers if needed on each of the domains and sectors, because I think each of the programs, I didn't mention all of them, are indeed important, and they are the reflection of the common position that the Parliament had with the numbers. Of course, traditionally, next to the budget report, and I'm happy again that it got approved, we usually associate to that a resolution, a common resolution of the European Parliament. In the past, you know, the Parliament didn't manage to reach a consensus. This time again, we didn't manage to reach a consensus, despite having, in my opinion, a good resolution that was largely approved in the Budgets Committee. My perspective on the vote that just took place now in the plenary is that indeed the tensions between the different political groups in the European Parliament are high, and of course, especially at the level of some political groups, including my own, the fact that the EPP and the far-right groups voted several amendments that were going against the compromises generated this final reaction. Personally, I will never vote with the far right. I always try to avoid this situation. So therefore, of course, these tensions between the political groups was reflected on this report. In a pragmatic terms, I can say that I'm in the lucky position that now, without the resolution, to be able to negotiate freely the EU budget based on the numbers, because the resolutions sometimes puts constraints on the negotiator of the European Parliament. So I don't have those constraints. I have only indications in terms of numbers. So therefore, despite the fact that I, as I said, consider the resolution as being well drafted, especially the initial part, as we proposed to the plenary, now I'm in a more comfortable position because I will need to defend the numbers, and I'm confident that in the negotiation with the Council, we will be able to obtain a good outcome, a good compromise, and therefore I'm quite confident, positive after the votes that took place today in the plenary. So this is my short, these are my short comments on the EU budget, on the votes that we just had, and the start of the conciliations. I tend to believe, after initial contacts with the presidency, but also with the Commission, that it's a good starting point, and I hope that we can move forward in a timely manner. I hope that, of course, both institutions will act accordingly. Again, I'm confident that the Commission will act as an honest broker, while at the same time I hope that the Council will be constructive, will be flexible in its position, and will also understand the need for a strong EU budget focused on investment. I want to clarify, these are not expenses, these are investment that we plan for Europe by financing those programs. But I think there is a good, constructive, working and professional atmosphere at the start of these negotiations. I hope they will last. The Parliament is really clear in defending its request, and in my position as General Rapporteur, I will do my best in defending it with the support of the shadows, and my colleagues accompany me during the conciliations. So I'm available for any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we have time for some questions. For those who are following us online, if you want to ask a question, click raise your hand. And now in the room, I see one question over here. Gentlemen, please. If you can introduce yourself and media you are representing.
Yes. Bogdan Isopescu, Radio Romania. Speaking about the Council, yesterday the Council said that they could not accept all your amendments. So this means that they will accept part of them. Do you have an idea about this part of the amendments that the Council would agree on? And in Romanian, if it's possible, aș vrea să... Există state membre care sunt avantajate sau dezavantajate de propunerea Parlamentului European. Pentru România, propunerea Parlamentului European, cum este față de cea a Consiliului? Mulțumesc.
In English, as I said just earlier, we also disagree with the position of the Council on the EU budget. So there is an agreement that we disagree. And it's always the case when we start negotiations. We believe that in current times we need to invest more, we need to make sure that the programs are more effective, and we have adequate resources for that. The example that I gave also during the plenary debate, I think it's quite simple, is that we want Erasmus to work. We need to make sure that the young people that use those mobilities have the means to enjoy those mobilities and to make sure that Erasmus is still accessible also for young people or professionals that do not have the financial means for those mobilities that really depend on the scholarship that we are providing to them. So it's very important for us to make sure Europe can still deliver. By cutting the budget, we will not be able to deliver upon citizens' expectations. And I don't want it to sound too big, but it is. It is as important as that, and it's really important to pay attention to details. Moreover, of course, we cannot only ask Europe to do more. We also need Europe to have the capacity to act. So we all noticed the tremendous effort done by the European Union when countries were affected by natural disasters. And I think this is an effective tool. But in order to do that, you need resources. So we were all happy to see the decisions of the European Union to allocate money to the countries affected by floods, but we need funds for that. We were all happy to receive support, drugs, to see Europe intervening, helping when it comes to the intervention of experts in different fields in disaster management, but again, we need money to do that. So that is why, for instance, we want to reinforce the EU civil protection mechanism, and the Council was not calling for that, despite the fact that member states are the ones benefiting directly from that. So now I will switch to Romanian to ask to answer the question of my colleague. Cred că versiunea Parlamentului European oferă mai multe oportunități pentru statele membre, pentru că noi am încercat să integrăm în poziția noastră comună acele măsuri care au un efect imediat în viața cetățenilor. Probabil și pentru că acum suntem în continuare într-o perioadă post-electorală, de aceea ne-am gândit că ar fi oportun pentru noi să vedem o reflecție a ceea ce ne-au spus cetățenii în modul în care creionăm acest buget. Fie că vorbim de Erasmus sau de mecanismul pentru protecție civilă, sunt mecanisme directe de intervenție. Fie că vorbim de agricultură și sprijinul pentru tineri fermieri sau că vorbim de îmbunătățirea infrastructurii de transport, din nou vedem că aceste programe au un efect imediat în creșterea nivelului de trai. Și în cazul României, este evident că în poziția Parlamentului European sunt multe puncte pozitive în avantajul țării noastre. M-aș referi aici, în mod special, la sprijinul oferit de Parlamentul European pentru programul dedicat protecției frontierelor, în care menționăm sprijinul pentru aderarea completă a României și Bulgariei la spațiul Schengen. M-aș referi aici la coordonarea sistemului de securități sociale, care ar permite diasporei europene, inclusiv cea românească, să își transfere mai ușor drepturile și beneficiile sociale, inclusiv pensiile dintr-un stat în celălalt. Mă refer aici la sprijinul consistent pentru zona de agricultură, în mod special pentru tinerii fermieri, sau mă refer la sprijinul consistent pentru Republica Moldova, care este mai mare decât cel propus de Consiliu. Sunt multe alte elemente și eu cred că fiecare stat membru, dacă este atent la poziția Parlamentului European, va avea elemente pe care le poate scoate în evidență și pe care le poate susține. Și asta mi-aș dori din partea reprezentanților în Consiliu, să ia în considerare toate aceste elemente și vor vedea în poziția Parlamentului European o reflecție destul de apropiată de poziția statelor membre și mi-aș dori să o îmbrățișez, să o susțină, pentru că, contrar a ceea ce am văzut în anumite declarații, astăzi avem un buget multianual, un buget pe termen lung și nu există niciun avantaj în a tăia din aceste programe pentru nimeni. Pentru că, știți foarte bine, contribuțiile statelor membre sunt setate de foarte mult timp și o tăiere a unor programe cu siguranță nu va ajuta pe nimeni și nu va aduce la niciun efect suplimentar pozitiv pentru statele care contribuie la bugetul comun european. Sorry for being a little bit longer in Romanian, but it's good sometimes also to hear other languages here.
Yes, please, another question.
Good morning, Pietro Guassamacchia from ANSA News Agency. We still haven't had the time to go through the amendments. We still haven't got the time to go through the amendment votes, but as far as we are aware, there seems to have been a different majority on certain amendments that are related to expenses, related to fences at the border of the European Union, and also one related to Frontex. Is that confirmed?
So on the numbers and the figures, there is no amendment that went through against the compromises. It's only on the resolution. This is why the resolution didn't go through. The resolution didn't go through because the compromise was not kept despite what was discussed in the budget committee. If you look in the budget committee, 90%, almost 90% of the members voted for the compromises. Now in the plenary, the debate was about something else. It was not about budget. It was not about respecting the compromises and the good agreement that was reached. It was about other issues that are not related to budgetary issues. And personally, as I said also in the plenary, I still think that we should have avoided that. I called upon my colleagues also at the beginning of the debates to avoid entering in disputes and discussions that are beyond what we discussed. In my opinion, many of the issues that were addressed were out of the scope of the budget because it didn't have any budgetary impact. So for me, again, and this is my political angle this time, and sorry for that, for my political group, the SND, but also you saw Renew, the Greens, and the Left, the four political groups that also supported the resolution in the Budgets Committee, my colleagues felt betrayed because the EPP did not respect the deal and they voted together with the Patriots several amendments. It's not about the content. I think it was about how they did it, and really there is no clear understanding why they did it, because most of the topics were already integrated in the compromises. And if you look at the compromises, actually their position, the position of the EPP, was well reflected. By voting those individual amendments or the Patriots amendments, basically they disagreed with themselves, and they shown that they do not support the position of their shadow. So I think indeed there is a problem. It's not the first time that we see rapporteurs from EPP or shadows incapable of keeping the unity of the EPP group. I don't know why this is happening. I hope this will not harm us in the negotiations. I'm constructive in my approach and will work closely with all the shadows, but I think it was a mistake. Again, personally, I believe there were a lot of good elements in the resolution. I defended it as best as I could, while in the same time I have this clear line on budgets. I don't vote with the far right, and I kept this commitment also in my votes, while clearly underlining, as I did, that people were not faithful to the pro-European coalition. I think it's a failure of the pro-European coalition, and it was when four pro-European groups disagree with you. If you are the fifth one, you should think about what you did. Moreover, if you vote a certain amendment with the far right, probably they should have talked about the final vote as well. I don't understand why they didn't do that if they already agreed on something else before. But this is their strategy. I'm not in the position of commenting on it. I am in the position of defending the position of the Parliament when it comes to budgetary allocations. And as I said, and I want to underline once more because I think it's important, so if you quote, please quote that as well. For me as a rapporteur now, I'm really in a comfortable position because I'm free to conduct the negotiations without constraints. So I don't know if the EPP wanted to give me the possibility to negotiate freely, but I'm happy because therefore I do not need to look at what they push for in the compromises on the resolution, because now I need to defend the numbers. And in the case of numbers, I think we obtained a lot of things that are important for me as a rapporteur, for the Parliament, but I might say also for the large part of the pro-European groups here in the European House.
maybe we can group the two questions. First lady at the very end.
Just to make a small joke, if you allow me. It seems my last comment generated several questions. Huh?
Je peux? Oui. Bonjour, c'est en français. C'est bon? Je peux poser la question? Non, vous avez besoin de la traduction?
Non, non, pas.
Ça va? Okay. Emmanuel Strosser, donc pour Bruxelles 2. Vous parliez d'une commission qui doit être médiateur, un bon médiateur dans le trilogue. Est-ce que le fait que ce trilogue se déroule entre deux commissions, justement, va compliquer les choses ou affaiblir la position de la commission?
J'ai confiance dans le commissaire Hahn, dans son expérience, et je pense que la Commission va nous aider à trouver un bon compromis durant les négociations. On a eu plusieurs rencontres pour discuter sur le budget 2025. On s'est même vu aujourd'hui. J'attends de la part de la Commission d'avoir une réflexion honnête, ouverte, objective sur tous les points qui sont discutés. Il est clair qu'on partage, on va dire, quasiment la même vision sur l'application du mécanisme de financement de plan de renouvellement. Et à ce titre, j'espère que la position de la Commission, qui est reflétée également dans des documents approuvés par la Commission, cette position-là va nous aider à trouver un compromis assez rapidement. De même, comme je l'ai dit auparavant, le Parlement européen demande au Conseil de revenir à la forme initiale proposée par la Commission sur la plupart des programmes. Et donc déjà, on a un point commun. Donc même si on a une commission qui est en train de partir, je pense que le commissaire et son équipe ils vont faire leur travail et qu'on va réussir à trouver un compromis. J'espère qu'on va réussir à trouver un compromis dans les délais qui sont prévus. Comme vous savez, c'est avant la fin du mois de novembre qu'on doit trouver un compromis, un consensus. On a un délai très clair et j'espère qu'on va s'inscrire et j'espère que la Commission va nous aider à trouver les points communs et une solution pour avancer et approuver le budget pour l'année prochaine dans les délais prévus. Merci.
Thank you. So and maybe we'll take those two questions with the gentleman.
Let's take them one by one, please.
Okay.
Emmanuel Beretta, Le Point. Ai-je bien compris que le Conseil est revenu sur la révision du MFF décidée dans la douleur en février?
Donc la position du Parlement européen est claire. On défend la révision du budget multiannuel. Et la révision était claire sur les allocations pour les différents programmes. Donc ça ne sert à rien d'essayer de réajuster les chiffres ou diminuer certains programmes, dont Erasmus par exemple, ou le programme Youth for Health sur la santé. Parce qu'il y a déjà eu des réductions qui ont été faites, comme pour le programme de recherche, par exemple. Donc, à mon avis, il faut respecter la révision, il faut la mettre en place, être certain qu'on a les ressources adéquates pour chaque programme, et par la suite, voir un peu où on peut faire des ajustements. Donc, on entre dans des négociations. Il y aura des négociations. Mais le point de vue, c'est que déjà, le point de départ doit être la proposition de la Commission, qui reflète dans une grosse partie ce qui a été approuvé lors de la révision du budget multiannuel. À partir de là, vous savez, le Parlement européen a des marges qu'il peut utiliser dans les négociations, parce qu'on a cette possibilité-là et on essaie d'utiliser la plupart de ces marges financières pour booster un peu les investissements pour l'année prochaine. Parce que, comme vous le savez, il y a beaucoup de pays qui rencontrent aujourd'hui certaines difficultés. On a une réduction de la croissance économique et c'est effectivement, tous les économistes le disent, lorsqu'on rencontre ce genre de situation, il faut investir plus. Et on sait très bien l'effet multiplicateur des investissements européens, il est très très grand. Donc effectivement, lorsqu'on investit au niveau européen, on ressent les bénéfices dans tous les pays européens. Et pour nous, c'est important parce que le marché commun fonctionne lorsque tous les pays se développent. Et c'est pour ça qu'on pense qu'il faut effectivement renforcer beaucoup, la plupart des programmes européens en utilisant les marges qui sont disponibles. Donc on ne demande pas de l'argent supplémentaire, c'est important. On ne parle pas d'argent supplémentaire. On parle de l'utilisation de l'argent qui est disponible et ça, c'est important de le dire.
Dutch Press, sorry, Yolanda, Dutch Press Agency ANP. I have a question about the budget because you say, can you hear me? Ah, okay. Okay. Because you say you don't use extra money. Can you explain that? Because you want to get rid of the budget cuts of the European Commission, is that what I understand? And you use that money for the reinforcements?
So I will explain. So we have a budget for 7 years, a multi-annual financial framework. That was revised, as you know, recently. And they allocate that amount for the entire period. And based on the amount that is available for the entire period, for the different programs, the Commission comes up with a proposal on how to distribute the money every year. And they come up with a proposal that is not spending all the money available, that leaves some margins. So we can decide in 2025 to allocate more and allocate less in 2027, or allocate less in 2025 and more in 2027, because we have some margins that we can use in the negotiations. Moreover, we have money that was not used in the past, because the programs were not put into place, because there were delays in the implementation, and we want to use that money effectively. Indeed, here some member states said, let's not use that money. If it wasn't used, let's keep it for emergency situations, but we have money for emergency situations, or give it back to member states. This is what they are generally looking for. So what the Parliament does is that we want to distribute the money according to our position, and we believe in 2025 we need some reinforcement. We need to do more in 2025 without asking member states to contribute more. By the way, if you look at previous years, there are some member states that take back part of their contributions. The countries that negotiated rebates, and we speak about close to billions of euros that they get back. And we have, of course, also, because in 2023, we collected more money than we predicted from the own resources of the EU, like penalties that we applied. We actually decided, this is a procedure, we are forced to give part of the money back to the member states. So we are not blocking those mechanisms that are in place. We are just saying in 2025, we need to do the most with the available money. Let's use the resources that we have, because in times like this, we need to invest more, and we have to be certain that the programs are working. We also saw the impact of inflation. We also saw the impact generated by economic constraints. We also evaluated the impact of the war in Ukraine. We also saw the priorities. So we tried to mix all of that. And this will be my last comment. Traditionally, the Council and sometimes the Commission, they always come up with new priorities that we generally approve in this House, because it's normal to approve what is correct. Nevertheless, we need quite often to remind the Council, but also the Commission, but mainly the Council, as I said, that we also need money for that. Because otherwise, we only make declarations, and they are not complemented by adequate financial resources. So it's nice to make pictures with young people in Erasmus, but they also need to afford those mobilities. It's nice to speak about how Europe helped everyone during the pandemic, or had a European cancer plan, but if we don't have money to deal with the new challenges or potential future challenges, then again, we will not match what we declare and what people expect from us. So we are coming with a position that is balanced, again, ambitious, but we are also prudent, so we are not going beyond what the Parliament requested in the past. Actually, we are a little bit under what the Parliament requested in previous years. So this is why I do hope that we reach a compromise, we reach a consensus. I hope the discussion on the 5th of November will allow us to move forward. We have about 2 weeks after the 5th of November to conclude, and I hope we will use all the time available to finalize the process and come back to the Parliament and approve the budget for next year in a timely manner. Thank you so much for your participation and your questions.
So thank you very much for taking part in the conference and for Rapporteur presenting Parliament position, also the interpreters staying a little bit over. And with this, I close the press conference.